Why was Tsepo Khadima fired as Petro SA chairperson? Are the allegations of fraud against Mr. Khadima true? And why was Tsepo Khadima appointed as chairperson in the first place? Would Tsepo Khadima have been able to carry out his responsibilities as chairperson of Petro SA? What time is it? It's question time. Welcome to the show. Tsepo Khadima has been in the news recently after he was appointed chairperson of Petro SA. His appointment was soon thereafter rescinded by the Central Energy Fund owing to the plethora of claims against him, among which included fraud. Tsepo Khadima is our guest today on Question Time. Mr. Khadima, welcome to the show. Quite a pleasure having you here.
Well, Mr. Stedu, thank you very much for having invited me here. And indeed, it is a great pleasure that I can be here to be able to tell my side of the story and share with the South African nation, and in fact, the whole of the continent, my side of the story, which up till now has not been heard. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Are you a smooth-talking fraudster?
Interestingly, in the last 14 days, it appears that that has been the consistent falsehood that has been peddled against my name and reputation.
Yes.
It reminds me of what the late John F. Kennedy once said, that Adolf Hitler of Germany repeated over and over that the Jewish people were evil. And eventually that became the gospel, which eventuated in the alienation of the Jewish people.
Yes.
And in my case, I feel that is what has been the case, that the lie has consistently been repeated in order to try and make it to be truthful. And it is for that reason that I have now agreed to come out and be able to state my case.
Okay. Let's talk about Tsepo Khadima before you were appointed.
Yes.
Because it would appear that people are saying the reason you've been, or your appointment was rescinded, is because of all these things that have happened. The company, Lonto Coal, did it ever exist?
The company Lonto Coal Limited exists.
It still does?
Indeed.
Okay.
And the company Lonto Coal was established in 2008.
Okay.
Following a 2-year period whereby I led our team under the chairmanship of my late colleague, Mr. Bekis Melani, where from 2006 to 2008, we extensively did research about the energy markets and the sources of energy that will be used over a 50-year period in time future. And from that 2-year period where we did that research, and I led the team at the then founding shareholder of Lonto Coal, being Lonto South Africa, which was a corporate finance and boutique investment banking firm. We then, at the end of the 2-year period, came to a clear conclusion that fossil fuels were, for at least another 50 years, would continue to constitute more than 50%, rather more than 70% of energy sources globally. And that coal, particularly as a fossil fuel, would continue to constitute more than 54% of power generation globally. And these are the figures that can be backed up by the International Energy Agency. And it was really armed with that research and armed with the experience and the expertise that I have, having worked in the natural resources space as an investment banker, that we then saw it fit that we could establish a company that would then play a prominent role in the energy space, not only in South Africa, not only in SADC, but also globally. Okay. And that is our aim, and that is what we continue to do to this day as Lonto Coal Limited. So most certainly we exist.
Okay. Now, former Minister Zola Skweyiya says you swindled him 3.2 million.
Yes.
Did you steal his money?
I wish to go on record once again that myself as a person, I have never taken any money. I have never accepted or received any money from Ambassador Zola Skweyiya.
Okay.
And also I wish to go on record that of the more than 250 shareholders that Lonto Coal has today, as a public company, Mr. Zola Skweyiya or Ambassador Zola Skweyiya is not a shareholder and has never been a shareholder in Lonto Coal. So once and for all,
Dr. Skweyiya, his nephew, a shareholder there?
Well, to start with, I want to also state that the share subscription agreement that is signed with all the various investors assures each and every investor of confidentiality.
Okay.
And so we disclose the name of the shareholders if and when they agree or consent to such disclosure.
Okay.
So specifically, if I want to go and address where the allegation has been persistent that Ambassador Zola Skweyiya is a shareholder, I want to go on record that he's not a shareholder and he has never been a shareholder in Lonto Coal. And it is highly regrettable, more so because on the 19th of November this year, just this previous month, I sent Ambassador Zola Skweyiya a very lengthy message whereby I put it to him that this allegation, which could not be legally sustained, he should please correct it.
Okay.
And to this day, he has never responded. And that is my pain, that as a result of that allegation that has been false, to the extent that either myself or the company has defrauded him, has cost so much. Over 300 people have lost their jobs in terms of his previous action dating back to 2011.
Okay. But did you at any point, I know you're saying that you wouldn't want
Yes.
to talk about the current shareholders, did you at any point have Mr. Skweyiya or Ambassador Skweyiya as one of your investors?
Never.
But now there was a point where you said that these people, these investors, made 1,000% return on their investments.
This dates back to 2012, whereby we then established a platform for our shares to be able to trade on over-the-counter market. And taking into account that in 2010, when we went out on a broad-based black economic empowerment share offer, that the subscription price at the time was R1.50 a share.
Yes.
So at the time when the company had now grown, had completed exploration drilling program, was now starting to trade, had signed long-term agreements with various utilities, state-owned companies in China, and was developing the India market on the export front, that at that time in 2012, having now seen that we are having a delay in the listing of the company in order for our founding shareholders as well as our broad-based black economic empowerment shareholders to be able to trade their shares, we then decided as management of Lonto Coal to then establish the over-the-counter market. And the over-the-counter market, the brief period that we were on, the shares were trading at over 12 Rand a share. So it is on that basis that the percentage growth that they realized, or the capital appreciation the investors had realized based on the R1.50 a share initially that they had paid for each share.
Okay. I want us to take a quick break. When we return, let's talk about Songezo Zibi, the man you visited.
Yes.
And you'll get the opportunity to say what you wanted to say to him.
Thank you.
Here on Question Time.
Thank you.
This is Question Time. Please don't go away.
In Parliament, Higher Education and Training Minister Bladen Nzimande has conceded that the bursary scheme is not enough to meet the growing demand from students.
Funding for universities is not enough. We're open about that. We will continue to ask for more from government as a department.
We've always said that the NSFAS budget must be 16 billion rand and that no qualifying student must be prevented from studying just because they cannot afford to do so.
There's been concern about citrus exports to Europe and investment contracts.
There are more opportunities for us to sell sugar, wine, ethanol, some fruit products than we had before, and that could create jobs.
That's Business News, weekdays at 6 p.m. on SABC News.
Zoom into Africa. This is Namibia. The president is Mr. Hifikepunye Pohamba. Namibia got independent from South Africa on 21 March 1990. The population is over 2 million people. One of the major languages spoken is Afrikaans. Monetary unit is the Namibian dollar.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. Our guest today is Tsepo Khadima. He's the former, very brief chairperson of Petro SA. Now, Mr. Khadima, you then went to Business Day offices to meet with Songezo Zibi, the editor. What had you gone to do there?
Yes, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to clarify this once and for all.
Yes.
On the 20th, which was a Thursday, the 20th of November, there had been 3 articles published already by the Times Media Group.
Yes.
Which were a repeat of the false allegations, defamatory allegations that were leveled against me. And one of the storylines was to the effect that I could not be traced or found anywhere.
Okay.
So effectively I was accused of being a Houdini.
Yes.
So on the 20th, I thought it was opportune to bring this to an end. I visited the offices of the Times Media Group, and having read the 3 articles that already had been published by the Sunday Times as well as the Business Day. And on that morning of the 20th, the Business Day itself had come out with a storyline, a headline, to the effect that I am facing criminal charges. So I clearly noticed, and having received legal counsel, that the Times Media Group publications had not adhered to the South African Press Code. I then visited the offices of Business Day to answer any questions that they may have had. But it was absolutely important that I inquire of them and get their confirmation on whether or not they complied with the South African Press Code.
Okay.
So when I asked that question, it seemed to be the straw that broke the camel's back, because Mr. Zibi lost composure when he was asked that question. And then when the reporter also, Mr. Samuel Mungadzi, who had been called in,
Yes.
when I also asked a question about the relationship that he has with a public relations consultant, if it can be called, whereby I had earlier in the day seen evidence of allegations of distortion leveled against the Times Media Group, whereby a JSE listed company had been under siege from both Mr. Zibi as well as the journalist concerned. And that for me was very serious.
But now it is said that instead of dealing with the questions, either which you had or
Yes.
which they had for you, you then began to ask, where is Samuel Mungadzi from? You know, are you South African?
No, I
What
did not.
did that have to do with the questions?
I did not ask if Mr. Mungadzi, I knew that he was a Zimbabwean national. I therefore asked him to confirm that he's a Zimbabwean national.
But what does that have to do
Yes.
with the questions that you're facing?
I would therefore like to today clarify that.
Yeah.
Lonto Coal has for a long time gone on record about its investment program in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, but they've said
That
that
investment-
that investment never actually happened.
On the 24th of October 2013,
Yeah.
I had the privilege of being able to address the Office of President and Cabinet in Zimbabwe, where all the ministries that are concerned, I made a presentation to them about what we call the Lubimbi project
Okay,
in
so
Zimbabwe.
this has got nothing to do with
So
Liberation Mining.
all these allegations that have been leveled against Lonto Coal or myself are completely false.
Okay.
Because if indeed it was a case, I would not have spoken to or addressed the Office of President and Cabinet in Zimbabwe.
But remember, Mr. Khadima, you are a very well-connected man. You know? So getting an appointment with any president, I don't think it would be such an issue for you. But what I was saying is Liberation Mining Liberation Mining is a company in Zimbabwe which has said that what they wanted to do with you never materialized.
Well, that is a complete lie. To start with, anybody that we enter into agreements with, we expect them to comply and uphold those agreements.
Okay.
And we hold them to the agreements.
Okay.
We have agreements, as you can see the documents that I have here,
Okay.
of over 400 pages. In one of the documents here is not only the package of agreements we signed with Liberation Mining,
Okay.
but proof of the monies that we paid for our shareholding in Liberation Mining Private Limited,
Okay.
as well as proof that the South African Reserve Bank approved of Lonto Coal to be able to make the investment in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
And there has never been any denial that they have received money, the three shareholders, that they've received money from Lonto Coal for the purchase of the shares in Liberation Mining Private Limited. But what is even more concerning is that particularly when we found out recently, we made an inquiry with the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe to find out if the monies that we had paid to the other shareholders of Liberation Mining, if they had been declared in Zimbabwe,
Okay.
to which extent we were told that they never even declared those monies. So they've contravened the foreign exchange controls of Zimbabwe, and I think they have a lot more to answer. But we hold them to the agreements, and we continue to work in Zimbabwe. We have a $10 billion investment program in Zimbabwe, which we intend to see through.
Okay. Now, Mr. Khadim, all what you're saying would appear that you are a very wealthy man. Am I correct?
Well, how would you describe wealth? If you are describing wealth in terms of
company that you own, which has, assets in excess of 10 billion.
That's not what I'm saying, Mr. Tsidu. To start with, I'm a President and Chief Executive of Lonto Coal Limited.
Yes.
Therefore, I'm an employee.
Okay.
But I'm an employee who, for the last 3 years, I had to take a conscious decision to have to work every day diligently with dedication for Lonto Coal without pay, because of these malicious allegations that have been peddled, whereby our ability to raise capital on the equity capital markets has been severely impeded. So, therefore, the investment program that we have, as with any other natural resource company that is investing in capital-intensive businesses, such as the programs that we have in Zimbabwe of a coal-to-liquids plant, of a power plant, as well as a coal slurry pipeline, they would require 10 billion. And the only avenue to be able to raise such depth of capital is on a listing.
Okay. Hold that thought there. We are going to take a quick, we're going to return. I want us to talk about Petro SA and wrap up. This is Question Time. Please don't go away.
It could be a gloomy Christmas for many South Africans whose jobs are on a knife's edge.
But the concern this time around is that there's certainly a spike and all sectors of the economy face risk.
Solidarity is involved in 45 different retrenchment exercises, and it cuts across all sectors.
While most retrenchments are expected in the mining and manufacturing sectors, analysts say the public sector will not escape.
So people are now sitting on their hands because the future is very uncertain.
Primetime News, daily at 6 p.m. on SABC News.
Tsepo Kgadima is my guest today, and you're still watching Question Time. Now, Mr. Kgadima, you then get appointed chairperson of Petro SA.
Yes.
How did that process go?
Well, let me start dating back to this year, in July. The Department of Energy had an advertisement whereby there were call for nominations for various South Africans to serve on the boards of state-owned companies that report to the Ministry of Energy.
Correct.
So my name was nominated.
Okay.
And my curriculum vitae was submitted.
Okay.
Which, that curriculum vitae, by the way, part of it is available on LinkedIn. And the due process that was then followed, it is my understanding that it eventuated in my being recommended to be on the board of Petro SA together with 5 other South Africans, whom 6 of us combined, we were appointed on the 14th of November 2014. And my name then, because of, I believe, my experience, my expertise, and my in-depth knowledge of the energy markets globally, and having successfully led in this space various companies, I was then recommended and approved to be the chairperson of the board of Petro SA.
Now, do you know who nominated you? Obviously you would, and perhaps you may not be at liberty to divulge, but it would appear that your appointment was politically motivated, which goes back to the fact that you seem to be quite a well-connected man.
I'm sorry I have to say this, but I reject that completely. I, as a professional who has done a lot of work, for example, I was the first person from the continent of Africa of any race or color to be invited as a keynote speaker at the Asia Financial Forum, where I shared a podium with Nobel Peace Laureate such as Professor Joseph Stiglitz, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne of the UK, and the founder of Noble Minerals, Mr. Richard Ellman, and many others. And at that forum, one of the things that I was asked to be able to contribute about was really the growing urbanization globally and what can be done, and particularly in the area of natural resources, what are the things that can be done, what things that we as leaders can do to change the lives of many.
Okay. Now, then you get appointed, and then all these allegations, begin to flow. Then the Central Energy Fund chairperson, Sankim Tembi Mahanyele, releases a statement, and she says, in light of the current controversy, the board felt it would be impossible for Mr. Kgadima to carry out the responsibilities of the chairperson of Petro SA effectively. Did you agree with that?
I do not agree with that.
Okay.
And the tragedy of this whole thing is that we are a constitutional democracy as South Africa. And one of the constitutional rights that, as a citizen of this republic, I enjoy, and I never waived that right, is procedural fairness. The legal principle, which is sacrosanct, which is cherished in this country, and very fundamental, of audi alteram partem, was completely disregarded in this case. I was not given the right to be heard. And therefore, my constitutional rights were completely violated. And for me, it is worrying that a board of directors who are supposed to be more knowledgeable about what the Constitution says, what the law says, in this case, did not it would seem, observe that very important legal principle. For example, 3 hours after the statement had been released and the media had reported about my being dishonorably discharged as the chairperson of Petro SA, then I received a letter. And the letter, of course, makes mention of this adverse media publicity. And I find that very strange because I was never given the right to be heard. If I'd been given the right to be heard, as I stress that all the allegations, if in the first place the South African Press Code had been complied with, the allegations would never have been published.
Okay. Do you still want your job back?
As a professional,
whether as a professional or just an ordinary person?
As a professional who has worked very hard over the many years to be able to build up the reputation, to be able to build the character, and also to have acquired the skills and the expertise that I have. It is very important that I protect that which I have built up. But also when I accepted the position at Petro SA, I accepted with a clear conscience that I must lead the board of Petro SA with integrity, with courage, with good judgment and dedication. And these are the qualities that I had hoped that I would have led the board. And it is, I believe, that given the opportunity, yes, most certainly I can lead Petro SA, the board and the company to be the winner that it must be.
All right. So in simple English, you still want your job back?
Well, I think it is very important that this procedural unfairness be remedied, and the only way to remedy it is then to put me back to my job, because if that is not done, it means therefore there is an issue of that, well, my name has been damaged.
Okay. So is your matter still sub judice? You are in court?
Oh, indeed. We are taking several courses of action in the courts in South Africa.
Mr. Kadim, let me wish you all the best. And given what you have said, I'm sure South Africa can do with your expertise.
Well, it is my hope that indeed this country can start to make use of the skills that I have gathered over the many years. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
That was Question Time for today. Get in touch with us. Our email address, questiontime@sabc.co.za. Our Twitter handle, @questiontime24. You can also follow me on Twitter, @mpotsedu. That was it from us. Have yourself a wonderful time. Goodbye.